Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So in this video, I'm going to tell you about what most people, and I mean most people, are doing wrong when it comes to learning classical Arabic. This is a mistaken language learning methodology that many people make, including native speakers who teach the language. Probably even more so, and I'm going to explain why. Arabs that grow up in in different Arabic speaking countries like Saudi or Syria, Jordan, Egypt, they speak an Arabic dialect in their daily life, which I think, most of us are aware of by this point. They don't speak classical Arabic in their day-to-day lives, but that doesn't mean that they don't know it. Most Arabs will be able to understand classical Arabic pretty much 100%, even if they're not able to speak it. This is because they grew up hearing it in cartoons, they heard it on the news, they read it in their books. Pretty much all written material will be in classical Arabic, as Arabic dialects are not a written language. So they have a lot of exposure to classical Arabic throughout their lives. And the reason that, some native Arabic speakers might struggle to speak classical Arabic is just because they're not in the habit of speaking it. So what do they do, native speakers, what do they do when it comes to learning classical Arabic? They do what most of us do in the West, and they study grammar books. They may not study the same books as we study in the West, like, the famous Medina books, or there's other books like A New Arabic Grammar. These books are quite famous in the West in terms of focusing on grammar. But they will study books like Al-Ajrumiyya, or they'll study, Al-Mutammimah, or even Al-Fiyya, which is absolutely fine for them, because they have a major difference to us, right? Us meaning us English speakers in the West. And it's obvious, they already know Arabic. They have had a lifetime of exposure to classical Arabic, and they have a massive foundation in which to build on. Basically, all of their written material throughout their lives has been Fusha. So that's not just, they're textbooks at school. That's all books in terms of, whether that's fiction or non-fiction. Even when they were children, I even have them for my children now, bedtime stories. They're all in classical Arabic. Documents, street signs, literally everything. So classical Arabic vocabulary is not foreign to them, to the majority, right, of native speakers, and especially ones that have gone through higher education and stuff like this. You'll find that a lot of them are actually able to speak quite good Fusha as well. Not only that, but the dialect that they speak has its foundations in classical Arabic. So it won't take much for them to be able to improve their speaking in classical Arabic when they already have a decent understanding of it. And that which will benefit them the most is them learning the rules of the language and the grammar of the language. That's why they will study books like Al-Ajrumiyya and stuff like this. And for those of you that have studied Al-Ajrumiyya, you can see the difference between the books that are authored for the Arabs and the books that are authored for the non-Arabs. It's like night and day. That's my experience anyway. And then you have us. Us meaning English speakers in the West who don't know a shred of Arabic to begin with. Especially reverts like myself, where, we haven't been raised Muslim and exposed to even the Arabic alphabet. Most Muslim, even if we do know Arabic, or we know how to read Arabic, that's as far as it goes for the majority of the Muslims in the West. They know how to read Arabic, right? But we don't know a shred of Arabic language. So for us to be focusing on grammar books and doing grammar exercises is a huge mistake, in my opinion. And I'm not I'm not bashing the Medina books and stuff like this. I think they're very beneficial in their in terms of what they are like authored for, because they are technically grammar books. The 1, 2, 3 are grammar books. I know there's side books on the side before everyone starts jumping on me and saying, oh, the actual curriculum's massive, it's got stories of the prophets. I know, but we're talking about the like famous 3 books that everybody knows. Those are grammar books. So obviously at some point we need to learn grammar, so they can be very, very beneficial. What I'm talking about is focusing solely upon grammar and grammar rules and grammar exercises. And like I said, this is a huge mistake that the majority of us fall into. I fell into this when I very first started learning Arabic. I actually went even deeper, and I was doing like i'rab and like things like this when I didn't even understand Arabic. And you'll find that a lot of the native speakers that teach Arabic as well will also focus on this. They'll focus on grammar and stuff like this because that's what they did when they were learning Fusha. They will focus on the technicalities of the language. They'll focus on nahu and sarf and balagha, not necessarily vocabulary, which is our main weakness. We have no foundation in the language at all. So we are more in need of actually building a foundation, the same foundation as what the Arabs have, through the same means, i.e. input, reading and listening, because that's how they got theirs. They don't speak Fusha. It's not a daily spoken language for them. For native Arabic speakers, ones who speak the Arabic dialects, yeah. But they know it through a lot of reading and a lot of listening. Whether that's cartoons when they were children, or documentaries as they were adults, reading books at school, reading bedtime stories as children, reading fiction books as they got older, whatever, they will have a good foundation. So we need the same foundation before we start, hardcore focusing on grammar and things like this. Because you do not want to be in the position, and take it from me, because this was the position I was in. You do not want to be in the position where you can do i'rab of a sentence and you don't know Arabic. As in, you can do i'rab of a sentence that you don't understand, and it's very frustrating because you spend I remember I spent a full year. It was a full year I spent doing i'rab, and it did not improve my Arabic at all. And I always thought, imagine if I spent that year actually with the language, reading books, listening to things. And then people will say, yeah, you can do both, which you can do both. Some people can do both if you've got the time to do both, but the majority of us haven't. So if you've got to pick one or the other, best believe you best be picking the language and not the rules of the language. Does that make sense? I think that's pretty clear to put it like that, right? Pick the language and not the rules of the language. That's not to say that you shouldn't study grammar, or you shouldn't look at grammar at all, Of course not. Grammar's going to help you, right? And I think it's beneficial even in the earlier stages. But you don't want to be spending the majority of your time in it, because your time is precious. And obviously we want to make the most of our time and choose the most efficient way to reach our goal, which is to learn the Arabic language. And if you were to spend the majority of your time doing grammar exercises and a little bit of time with the actual language, your progress is not going to be very good. You need to be doing it the other way around. You need to be spending 80% of your time with the language and 20% of your time studying the rules of the language. And that's even more so as you, especially when you get into the intermediate level. Once you've got a bit of a foundation, you might have done a couple of textbooks and stuff like this, and you're starting to able to read intermediate stories and listen to some audios and understand what they're saying. Even more so then, because that's when your vocab's going to explode. But in the beginning, you can do this by, say, if you're studying a textbook and there's conversations in the textbook and stuff like this, to reread that conversation, 10, 20 times is more beneficial than spending that same time in, grammar exercises, in my opinion. And the thing is, there's so many of us in the West that have done this as well. And it's like, it's almost just madness now that, we're doing the same procedure and we're all getting the same results. As in, we're all focusing on grammar rules and these grammar books and not actually spending time with the language. And the majority of us are not fluent in Arabic, not able to speak Arabic, not able to fluently understand Arabic. So there's something wrong, right? This started to ring alarm bells for me when I started to speak to Arabs. And I would be speaking to them in classical Arabic, obviously, because that's all I know. I don't really know any dialects, only bits and bats. And I would speak to them, and their Arabic would be far superior to mine. And these are just normal people, not like highly educated, not like TV presenters that have like trained in like classical Arabic and stuff like this, Fusha or modern standard Arabic, whatever you want to call it. This is normal guys, right? There's normal brothers, and their Arabic was far superior to mine. But I guarantee you, I know more rules of the language than they do. I can do i'rab of like what they're saying, but I don't understand it. I know that sounds funny, which it is funny. It's like, why are we doing this to ourselves? That's when it started to ring, alarm bells for me that there's something wrong. I technically know more rules and grammar and i'rab and whatever you want, all this other stuff of the language than these people do that I'm speaking to. But they can express themselves so much better than I can. And their Arabic is way better than mine is. Their classical Arabic is way better than mine is. So there's an issue here, right? That's when I started to switch. And I switched to, really focusing on input, really focusing on listening, really focusing on reading, and actively trying to gain as much vocabulary as humanly possible. And when I did this, not long after, my friend said to me, he said, he noticed that my Arabic had got better, alhamdulillah. And I didn't tell him at the time, but what it was is that I changed my methodology basically. I was reading like storybooks. I was Ankiing all of the words that I didn't understand, listening to the storybooks over and over and over, and I stopped doing grammar exercises. And what I would do instead is I would look at the grammar. I would read grammar books, but I wouldn't waste time doing all these exercises and stuff. But instead, I would try to notice it in what I was reading or what I was listening to, So it's a much more natural approach. And sometimes it's hard to see your own progress. But when he said to me, he said, I've noticed that your Arabic's got a lot better, Allahumma barik. I thought, alhamdulillah, I was so happy because that was like a proof for me. And I do trust his like judgment because, his Arabic is way better than mine. MashaAllah, Allahumma barik, his Arabic is very good. And when he said it to me, I was like, alhamdulillah, this must be working. So I carried on. And to be honest, not long after that, I started to feel my own progress. And I thought, this is definitely working. Listening became easier. My reading comprehension became much better. And then I started to feel the language then. I started to have an intuition for the language, how the sentences were structured and whatnot. And I just, it was like a turning point for me. It was like a game changer. And also to add to this is how I like teach my students as well. We'll focus mainly on vocabulary, building vocabulary, and I will introduce grammar rules to them, but we don't do grammar exercises. And I will introduce the rules in like a basic, simple way. And then as we're reading through stuff, I'll be like, oh, look, this is that rule. And I'll point stuff out here and there, and then we'll just keep going. And, I've had students that over the course of maybe like 4 to 6 months, they're able to read, like paragraphs in in like basic Arabic paragraphs, and with full comprehension. They can explain it to me. They understand it completely fine, and they have not done one grammar exercise in their life. You know? So, alhamdulillah, I really think this is the way to go. And this is really going to give you the best results, inshallah. So, in a nutshell, don't fall into the trap of, focusing on grammar exercises, and instead put most of your time and effort into learning vocabulary and spending time reading and listening and spending time with the actual language. But not to say to abandon grammar, no, obviously. And like I said, with stuff like the Medina books and actual grammar books, they do have a place, and they are beneficial. And I'm not here to put them down, because I know that they're getting a bad rap these days. Like, a lot of people are, jumping on the bandwagon of like bashing the Medina books. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes, I've read them and I thought, oh, like the language is a bit nasty sometimes, and I'm not the biggest fan, but hey, I started on them. The majority of us started on them. They've almost got a sentimental value to us, so we can't bash them too much. And that's not to say that they won't be beneficial for you, in the future as well, or even alongside learning vocabulary if you have the time. This video really is mainly about like the people that don't have the time, and you've got to pick one or the other as well, because if you've got all day long to do stuff and you want to learn grammar and study grammar and do grammar exercises, then alhamdulillah, you can do what you want, but I'm on about people that I'm thinking about people that are in the West, people that were living like I were living, where it's like full-time job and family, kids. You don't have time to do everything. You're knackered when you get back from work. You might be able to study for an hour, maybe two at a max, and then you got to fill in the rest with doing any kind of input that you can, with listening and stuff, or it's graft. So that's it for this video. Please, guys, if you can, like and subscribe, so we can you can help the channel, inshallah. And I don't know how to get this algorithm, pushing these videos out. Subhanallah. That's it for today. Ma as-salama.